Okay, so this is my first try at a video, so let's give it a go. These are going to be your 6-6 notes. Perfect. 6-6, and that is the law of cosines. And I'll try to go slow enough so you can write stuff down and get it in your notes, so that you'll have it in your notebook. But the law of cosines, we're going to use that if we can't use the law of sines. So for the law of sines, we had to have an opposite pair, so we can just remember that. For law of sines, we had an opposite pair, and we knew both a side and an angle, opposite pair. But for law of cosines, we will not know an opposite pair. So we'll have to use something different than when we just use law of sines. So we'll draw our basic triangle again, label all of our angles and our sides, and I'll show you the equation for law of cosines. That's just a straight mark. So little a across from angle A, little b across from angle B, little c across from angle C. Okay, so here is the law of cosines. You're going to recognize part of this at the very beginning, but it is that a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times cosine of big A. So that's an angle. These can be used interchangeably. The B and the C can be switched, but what has to happen is if you are using angle A, the number on this side has got to be from side A. So these have to be from the same side and angle opposite pair. Okay, but if I was looking for side B, I'd have a B here and a B there, and these would be A and C instead. And so we'll be able to see that in a minute when we do a couple examples. Okay, so if I'm looking for a side A, and I've got B, C, and big A, I'll just plug it in, put it in the calculator, and be able to find my answer. So let's look at one. I think that'll make it make more sense to you guys. So the first kind, we're going to find a side. Okay, so they're going to tell us, we have a few things that we know in our triangle. It's going to be an obtuse triangle. This angle is 108 degrees. We've got 15 and 18. Let's scroll 18. This is going to be big C, big B, and capital A. And we want to figure out what side little a is. So we have to figure out what we know and then where things need to be plugged into the equation. Okay? So we don't know little a, but we know big A. We know side B and side C. But we don't have an opposite pair, so we don't have both of those, we don't have both of those, we don't have both of those. So there's no way for us to use law of sines, so we have to use law of cosines. So we'll just plug in. We don't know little a, that's the side we're looking for, so that's going to be our unknown. I don't know that one. I know B. B is 15, so I'm going to write 15 squared, and plus C is 18, 18 squared, and minus 2 times 15 times 18 times cosine of 108 degrees. So then you just pause, type it into our calculator. So I'll do that real quick, make sure that you're in degree mode. If you're not, switch that. You can type this in while I'm doing it too, just to make sure that you can do this as well. So 15 squared minus 18 squared. If you put it in exactly like this with the parentheses, there should be no problem at all when you're typing it in. And cosine of 108. And we end up getting that a squared is equal to 715.869 dot dot dot, lots of other numbers after that. But obviously a is not 715, that wouldn't make sense in this triangle. So to figure out what a is, we're going to take the square root, and then we'll have a by itself. So we'll do the square root of that 715, and let's see what we get. And that is 26.756. So side A, 26.756. But if you wanted to then go ahead and find angle B or angle C, now you have an opposite pair and you can use law of sines. You don't have to keep using law of cosines after this just because this is the law of cosine section. So once I have an opposite pair, then I would use law of sines. I'm not going to continue to do that otherwise. Alright, now we'll see what it's like to find an angle. This one's a little bit different. So now we're going to find an angle. One thing that people mess up on if they're trying to figure out what an angle is that they just don't solve for the cosine part properly. So I'll make sure that that's clear on there. So if you're trying to find an angle, that means you've got all of the sides already. So let's just go with 10, 12, and 16. Doesn't matter where we put the A, B, or C. Let's see which one we're trying to find now. Let's try to find angle A. So what is angle A? Let's see. So we have to know what goes where when we're using our law of cosines formula. So if I'm trying to find angle A, this is going to be side little a, this will be little b, this will be little c, and I don't know what this is. So when I'm talking about the pair that I'm trying to figure out, like the beginning and the end of the equation, that's going to have to come from here. So I'm going to have to lead off with my 12 because I'm trying to find angle A. So I'll go 12 squared is equal to 10 squared plus 16 squared minus 2 times 10 times 16 times cosine of A. So this is where some people get a little bit confused. They try to divide by all of this, but you have to go one at a time in order to figure out what this is. So if you're starting out, you need to first do 12 squared minus 10 squared, and then you can also subtract 16 squared. That's going to equal this stuff. Okay, so let's just go ahead and figure out what 12 squared minus 10 squared minus 15 squared is. Minus 10 squared minus, not 15, 16, sorry. Minus 16 squared, and that is negative 212. Negative 212 is equal to negative 2 times 10 times 16 times cosine of A. And now if you want cosine of A by itself, you need to divide by all of these things. And you need to make sure that you put parentheses around them when you are dividing, like in your calculator. So negative 2 times 10 times 16. Do that on both sides. Okay, so negative 212 divided by, put this in parentheses, negative 2 times 10 times 16. And then we end up with 0.6625 is equal to cosine of A. And how do you figure out what an angle is? If you are missing, if you don't know the angle, we're going to do the inverse angle, or inverse cosine, I mean. So we'll do inverse cosine of 0.6625, and that's going to give us A. So just real quick, inverse cosine 0.6625, and that gives us, and if you're doing this at home, you'll know that that is 48.509 degrees. So that is how you would use the law of cosines to figure out a missing angle. Okay. Just one thing, I'm going to set it up over here, like say we were looking for angle B rather than looking for angle A. I just wanted you to see what the formula would look like. So if you're instead trying to find angle B, okay, so angle B is across from 10. So when you start the formula, you have to put the 10 squared first. And then that equals 12 squared plus 16 squared minus 2 times 12 times 16 times cosine of B. And you would solve it that way. And in the same way, if you're looking for angle C, you could probably figure it out by now, but if you're looking for angle C, The one across from angle C is 16, so that's what's going to have to be by itself on the other side. So 16 squared is 10 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 10 times 12 times cosine of C. And you solve it just the way that we solved the one right above. Okay? Just a little thing that helps some people. Some people don't like to actually plug the numbers in and solve it. You could go ahead and solve for the variable at the end, at the very beginning of the problem, if you know what all of those are. And if you want to, I'll show you this. You don't have to use this if you don't want to. Doesn't matter to me. But if you wanted to just go ahead and get the angle by itself, just from the formula, so if you just start with the regular formula, a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine A. Let's just say we want to get angle A by itself at the very beginning. I'm just going to go ahead and just show you quickly, and this is how I normally do it. If I'm just going to subtract b squared and c squared, so a squared minus b squared minus c squared is equal to negative 2bc cosine A. And then I'm going to divide by negative 2bc on both sides. Okay, and those will go away. And if you want to figure out what A is, we have to do the inverse cosine. So our angle A is always going to be the inverse cosine of a squared minus b squared minus c squared over negative 2bc. So that works every time. If you've got three sides, you always lead off with the one that matches the angle that you're trying to find, and you can just plug it into this formula in the calculator right off the bat. Just make sure you put an extra set of parentheses on the bottom if you're not using the alpha y equals fraction tool for that. Okay, so that is the law of cosines. And now we have one more formula. This one's really just kind of strange. I don't know. It has a weird name too. Some man probably gave this the name because it was his name, not just because he was a man. This is called Heron's formula. So Heron's formula will give you the area of a triangle, of any triangle, if you have all three sides. And this is probably the easiest formula to use that you've used in any class, well, basically in this class probably. And here it is. The S in the formula stands for semi-perimeter. And the prefix semi, I know you know this, but just as a reminder, semi means half. So if they ask for the semi-perimeter, you're just going to do half of the perimeter. So that's what these S's stand for. But this is the area of any triangle if you know all three sides. The area is the square root of S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. Where A, B, and C are the sides of the triangle, S is half of the perimeter. So we'll do a quick example. We'll see how easy this is. These are really fun to do. They're nice for the ACT if you actually remember the formula. That's the problem. People don't always remember it when it comes time. So if A is 7, B is 8, and C is 9, I first want to figure out what the semi-perimeter is. So for me to figure out my semi-perimeter, remember the perimeter is all the way around the triangle. So that would be all of the sides added together and then cut in half because it's half of the perimeter. So what's this going to be? 8 and 9 is 17, 7 more 24. So that is 24 over 2, which is 12. So everywhere we see an S in the formula, we're going to plug in 12, and then we'll plug in A, B, and C, and then get our answer. You can try this as well. So our area is the square root of 12 times. And what I like to do is I like to go ahead and subtract the numbers in my head because I can do single-digit subtraction. You probably can as well. So 12 minus 7 is going to be 5. 12 minus 8 is going to be 4. And 12 minus 9 is going to be 3. And we just type that in quickly. You could type everything in the calculator if you don't want to do that subtraction in your head. So what do we have? Square root of 12 times 5 times 4 times 3. Enter, and the area of a triangle with sides 7, 8, and 9 is equal to 26.833. And whatever units you're in. They didn't give us a unit, so you could put units squared if you wanted to. Give us inches squared, because you're doing area for that. Okay? Well, that is it for 6.6, which is law of cosines and law of law of cosines and Heron's formula. I hope you took some notes on it. You can watch it again, slow it down, whatever. If there's a problem with something or a question, shoot me an email or leave a comment on this. I'm just going to post this to the stream, which you probably already knew because that's how you found it. And enjoy the rest of your day and do that math. And how do you stop it?